What's up, fool?
How you doing?
Got a problem?
Call me.
Call me. What's up, bro? How you doing?
Doing great. How are you?
It's awesome to have you here in Ireland.
Yeah.
Twice in like 6 weeks or something, or 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How long ago was the last podcast we did together, you know?
So the last podcast, I think, was 2 years ago.
Damn.
I believe. Rebooting Hangry Horny with you.
Yeah.
With your book launch, everybody. The Art of Interpretation with Nima Khalilian.
It's launching to the stratosphere. We'll talk more about it.
Absolutely. So essentially, that was the last time we chatted. You were in the process of writing The Art of Interpretation. Mm-hmm. And now you actually have the book in print, also an audio book.
Correct.
And for anybody that doesn't know the context of your story, they can go to that Hangry and Horny 2 episodes of part 1 and part 2. Mm-hmm. And that kind of gives like the background story of Nima's life and how he came to this understanding of the unwritten rules of interpreting reality. Is that correct?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. Just kind of had some great experiences that showed me what we are at our root, and then I wanted to see what all the layers were that created all the different stories and identity and all that stuff that we attach ourselves to. And yeah, I had a deep dive and some really awesome experiences that have taught me some great things, and a lot of them we spoke about on your podcast.
Right.
And now here it is, a guide for you to see what each moment of your life, what's happening in each moment of your life, and yeah, some more stuff that we'll, I'm sure, get into.
Yeah.
As we
So,
carry
for
on.
example, you know, like how we actually filter reality through our lenses, right? Mm-hmm. And so you have almost of a schematic type of way of seeing, you know, if we were a processor or a computer and you had like sensors for all of our senses, whatnot. And when we're on whatever situation in life, or we're kind of taking in an input into our body through our senses and combine that with our subconscious programming. So everything that we learn from like evolutionary biology to things that we learned in our environment through like our guardians, and through education, through media, through everything that we've ever learned and processed through life. So is that correct?
For those of you that don't know, Tony actually proofread my book. That's why he knows all this shit. He knows it quite well. That is correct.
Yeah, twice.
Two times. Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's correct. Looking at our perception and how our perception is developed, how our perception changes over time through different experiences, and very much looking at how a lot of that, most of that happens subconsciously. And, yeah, we have the ability to go back in and, yeah, further enforce the things that we like, and the things that we don't like about our patterns, our habits. We can rewire it. And it's simple, but it's not always easy. So, yeah, if it's worth it to you, you can put in the work. Otherwise, yeah, I feel like myself and most people have spent a lot of their life just saying, this is who I am, this is how it is, this is what it is, and they further reinforce that belief by continuing to act in the same way. And that's fucked me up a lot of times in my life. And it took serious circumstances for me to finally look in the mirror and recognize that I was stepping up to the plate, bases loaded, and when the pitcher threw the ball, I wasn't even taking a swing. And I just went, why is that happening? Why is it when I have these opportunities and I know what I want to do and I know that I'm capable, that I'm falling short on taking the necessary action that I know deep within me what I need to do? And yeah, that we'll go into that in the book as well. And
well, you said capable, so I mean, many people probably think that they're not capable, so you actually during those times where you're, stepping up to the plate, bases loaded, in life, you actually have this idea or a thought that you are capable, or it just depends. Or sometimes you're like, I'm not capable. You have that kind of negative self-talk.
You know what? For me personally, and I think you could relate to this too, and it's one of the things that I bond with you over. So I meet a lot of people that I see and I go, oh shit, once he or she recognizes how fucking awesome they are, they're about to jump to the next level. For me, and I think for you in a lot of cases, it's like I look in the mirror and I'm like, damn, that guy is fucking awesome. And I spent a lot of my life feeling like other people weren't seeing that. And there was a lot of moments in my life where my surrounding environment was giving me feedback that I wasn't enough or I wasn't capable. And there were moments where I believed it. And that's one of the big things in this book, is recognizing the power of belief, because when you believe something, it affects your expression and it affects what you're willing to do, not do, what you're willing to go for in your life. And yeah, I had a lot of my life where I felt like others weren't seeing how awesome I was. I see a lot of people that don't see how awesome they are, and I'm like, you're fucking awesome. Just see it. For me, I spent a lot of my life feeling the other way. And over the last couple years, I gotta say, most people tell me I'm awesome, and I've known that for a long time. So to all you watching, I'm fucking awesome. Remember that.
You're awesome, man.
Thanks, man. You are so awesome, man.
And the studio audience back there,
they're awesome.
Yes, awesome.
And last night was Thanksgiving in Northern Ireland. Might have been the first time a Thanksgiving dinner's ever been had in Northern Ireland. We don't know. We can't confirm or deny that. But Tony's wife, Judy, knocked it out of the park. It was awesome.
I'm married now.
He's married. In case you guys missed it, he had to put everything on hold and create a life for himself, That happens.
Yeah, well, that's the example you're talking about, because of 2020 and this crazy year that we've all had on the planet, and with COVID and lockdowns and, censorship and big polarization with the media and politics and health education, or the lack of health education and whatnot. But, is an example that when you are willing to step out there with your neck and just follow your gut instinct, that it's possible to actually have things work in your favor when people are telling you that it's not possible with public health and some of the regulations and the lockdown. But we were able to have like a wedding in such short notice in Northern Ireland and travel. It's a lot of people from America around the world are like, how did you do that, right? How is that possible? And the thing was, like, people that were close to me chose to stay back, and understandably so. They, were concerned about, this sort of virus and disease, and but that was their reality. Whereas for you and I, we were like, we've traveled a lot, we've been to places, we know how this works, and so I came over once the lockdowns were lifted in travel, and was able to quarantine myself, and within a few weeks get married to my wife, Judy. And, the best part was that I only had, Scott Riley, who was the initial person that I came here to visit. He was my best man, and he was going to be the only person representing my side. And then, Judy and I go over to Scott's place to have some tea, and all of a sudden they're looking like kind of through me and past me in the kitchen, and I'm like, what the heck are they looking at? And I feel this hand on my shoulder, and I turn and it's you, man. And I'm like, holy shit, dude, what are you doing here? And I was like, of course, right? Like, this is further reinforces that despite what we hear in the media, despite, you know, what people are saying, you know, if you feel it, you have that gut instinct, that intuition saying like, hey, I have to act. I need to like jump through this hole, this door that opened up. I got to take it. And you and I have done that plenty of times. So it was kind of like second nature. And so I wasn't surprised, even though I was surprised. And it was like one of the best things that could happen. And you know, it made me feel so good to have you there at the wedding with Scott. And of course, you know, all of Judy's side. And it was just a beautiful moment, considering the type of year that's gone on. So, you know, before you came out, were, you know, basically on a motorcycle diary trip, like the art of the motorcycle diary. Is that the name of the book?
It's called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Yeah, exactly. So you were out there during California lockdown. You and your film guy, camera guy, went out on 2 motorcycles.
My brother man, Ryan.
Ryan, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Just to give people some context to that, I was actually in Europe. I was in Milan the day that the whole like massive Lombardy, just tons of people started dying, and Milan was considered a red zone and like the peak of it all in the world, of the virus, I should say. And I was going up to see my parents in Switzerland, and yeah, I ended up flying back to the States on March 10th, and then March 11th, the United States added those travel restrictions, which worked out really well for me, because when I went on March 10th, people were freaked out to fly, so the airports were completely empty. And then on March 11th, there was just video of thousands and thousands of people all swarmed in there, and yeah, didn't look ideal. So yeah, I came back and I said, oh shit, what's this? This seems like it's gonna be really bad. And so yeah, I did what I thought was responsible and stayed either in my house or on my motorcycle in nature, away from everybody. Didn't want to risk putting anyone at risk. I didn't know what was going to happen, and just felt like I had to be responsible with it. And they told us it was going to be 2 weeks, and I sat back and waited 2 weeks, and then they said it was going to be longer. And at some point, I had to kind of gauge for myself and see what made sense. And after about another month, I just went, okay, these things aren't adding up to me. They're not adding up. So, yeah, I decided. So Ryan and I had already planned to do this cross-country motorcycle trip and started a company called Shifting Fears. And the basis of that was to immerse ourselves in different environments and kind of show by example that we are able to adapt, and we don't need to hang on to one particular identity and say, no, I'm not going to go be a cowboy because I'm from LA, or I'm not going to go be a yogi because I was just a cowboy. But to be able to fully dive into an experience and feel it. And we said, okay, with all this that's going on, what do we do? And for us, it felt like it was more important than ever. When I was looking at what was going on in Los Angeles, I said, okay, you're telling me that it's not safe for people to be around one another, so you're going to close small businesses, so I can't go to my mom and pop hardware store anymore. But now there's like 300 people at Home Depot all gathered together. how does that make sense? How is that beneficial for people? Walmart is packed. At this time, in all the fast food restaurants, nobody was wearing a mask, and those lines were packed too. And that's kind of the thing for me. When I see people holding on to conflicting ideas and seeing them both as true, it just kind of weirds me out. So if somebody's telling me, yeah, like my grandma can die if I go near her, and then they say, okay, I'm just going to go near them once in a while, and I go, okay, so where do you draw the line? Like, are you either going to stay away from them because you're afraid that they're going to die, or are you going to be around them? When I see the World Health Organization come out in April and say asymptomatic carriers, it's extremely rare for asymptomatic carriers to be able to transmit the virus. And then I see a bunch of news articles come out saying, okay, if that's the case, then why do we need masks? Why do we need stay-at-home orders? Why do we need social distancing? If you're sick, stay home. And those who are predisposed, people who are at risk, we would say, let's make sure to allocate the right resources to take care of these people. But it didn't seem to move in that direction, and as time went by, there's more and more of that stuff. When we'd see vitamin D had a hugely beneficial, was hugely beneficial for keeping people from being hospitalized, and we see nothing about that on television telling us, hey, let's boost up our vitamin D, or hey, there's people with diabetes and they're at risk with this thing. People are stuck at home. Let's go ahead and put something up for, like, instead of showing me Judge Judy, show me some, like, workout stuff or nutrition stuff, like something to kind of help the health of the people. And this was one of so many things, so many things that I saw, and it just didn't make any sense for me. And I spoke to Ryan about it, and it didn't make sense for him either. And then we said, hey, you know what? We're going to continue on with what we're planning to do. And obviously, if we're camping, we're not around anybody, and we were using a program called Workaway, which is kind of like an Airbnb, but instead of paying for it, instead of paying for a room, you find people who have jobs they need help with, and you can go help them, and they'll give you food and housing. And we thought, okay, that's fucking awesome, because we can dive into real life experiences that are completely outside of our normal day-to-day and see what that's like. The experience was amazing. Each person we met was amazing. It really opened my eyes to different kinds of people, and the biggest thing for me, I would say, is being able to go to different cities and states and see how the culture was dealing with COVID-19. And that was pretty fascinating, because you'd go from LA, where it had gotten to a point, and it still is, very strict, and people are very concerned. And then you go to Encinitas, an hour and a half south, and there were thousands of people on the beach barbecuing, not wearing masks, living their lives. Then you go to Nevada, and we were staying on a ranch with 3 people. The nearest neighbor was 40 miles away, and I love those people. They were so awesome, and just seeing what it was like to be the guy who owned the ranch, his name was Jerry Elkins. His name is Jerry Elkins. His name is Robert Paulson. But so being with him, I just got to see someone who was fully immersed in a life of, he was a hot air balloon pilot, he was a cave explorer, and had found caves that were untouched at that time, and was working in the banks, and all of a sudden this guy's living on a ranch and just had this time to think for himself, had such beautiful insights. And so I got to see what it was like in Nevada. I got to see Las Vegas Strip completely empty at that time. Everything was closed. And then you see the culture of how they're dealing with it. Then all of a sudden you're in Sedona, Arizona, and over there was, I think the people there were more along the lines of do as you will. And
can you speak up a little bit?
Yeah, I was saying in Sedona, Arizona, people were more along the lines of just do what you will and we'll respect one another. If you want to gather, you gather. If you want to stay away from each other, you do that. And every place we went to, New Mexico had a completely different way they were dealing with it. Utah, Idaho. When I was in Provo, Utah, at this point, like, people were really freaked out all around, and the media was really pumping a lot of fear. But when I was in Provo, you would have had no idea anything was happening. There was thousands of people out. Every restaurant was packed. Nobody was keeping any distance. Nobody was wearing any masks, and they just seemed happy, and they were living their lives. Only people you saw wearing masks were people who worked in restaurants and stuff. But yeah, you would have had no idea. And it just kept going. Each place, Colorado, Idaho was completely different. Oregon was something else. Washington was another way. And it seemed like everywhere you went, the people in that bubble thought they were doing it right, and everybody else was either not doing enough or doing too much. And that was really fascinating for me. And I've also got to have that experience traveling to Europe now and going to Northern Ireland, going to the Netherlands, going to Germany, going to Italy, going to Switzerland, back over here. And it's also very interesting because new information keeps coming, and then people start, like, the whole culture shifts, like, information reaches the masses through the media, things are accepted, culture shifts. So what Northern Ireland was when I first got here is different now. Actually, today is the first day of them going back into lockdown that they're doing. So yeah, I've kind of got to experience that, and it's been very just amazing and very unique to be able to bounce into all these different places and see the perception at
Absolutely.
that time.
Yeah, you definitely have a unique vantage point being a traveler in both North America and Europe during this time. And we're in November 2020 right now. You started traveling back in March, was it? Well, you were in Italy. Okay. But even before that, so you were in the red zone, the epicenter supposedly in Milan back in March. So you're already, like, in the midst of it, and you saw, talk about unique vantage point. Like, you were actually there where, one of the worst hit places in the world next to China. So, just fascinating. And the ability for you to, like, border hop, jump from place to place and see it firsthand, where that was my litmus test, was to not rely solely on the media and, all the different sources of media, whether it was on TV, radio, or internet, but to actually reach out to people that were on ground level in different places on the planet and ask them, like, what was it like for all my medical friends that are nurses and doctors? What's it like in the trenches? And is it matching what we're being told by the news outlets? And a lot of them say, no, we're just kind of sitting here bored. And I'm thinking, like, well, there's so many people that need medical care but can't get it because they're specifically focused on coronavirus. And so it was just interesting for me to hear all the different perspectives of people that are out there in the world in the trenches. And you obviously have one of the most wide range experience in various places in the planet, during the last more than 6 months. So
yeah, definitely. And it's been very interesting to just watch the fear and watch the disconnect from a lot of people. And there's so much information coming right now, a lot of it conflicting, and I think if you ask anybody, they just want to do what's best for everybody, So, and then I just see some people who say, oh, this isn't what they said it was, which it isn't. Initially, they estimated up to 2.4 million people in the United States dying from it. They started counting presumed COVID deaths, people who hadn't tested positive for COVID-19. And I remember in April, New York added 3,700 to their death toll for presumed COVID deaths. And I'd see certain people seeing that kind of stuff and getting infuriated with other people who were, kind of going along with the guidelines that they were receiving from their governors and their mayors. And then I'd see, and I still do see, people who are going along with those guidelines who are infuriated with people who aren't going along with those guidelines. And I see a lot of division being created from that stuff. And I really had to accept that for myself. I had to make a choice for myself. And I think authenticity is very important, particularly now. Because I feel like a lot of people are acting certain ways because they want to gain approval from the people around them or not be ridiculed. And when I'm traveling, I'm doing this stuff, a lot of people are talking to me, a lot of people. And a whole bunch of them are, I'd say the overwhelming majority of them that I've spoken to have said to me, something's not right about this doesn't even make any sense. And everybody has their own point that they'll say, what the heck is going on with this doesn't make sense, but then they tell me, I just do this stuff because I don't want anyone to say anything to me. And for me, I felt like I had to be true to myself. I couldn't, in this moment, it feels like a very big moment. When was this? In maybe early April, just before I started this trip, I just had this moment where I went, holy shit, I'm sitting here watching Netflix, trying to pretend like life is normal, and over half the world's population is locked in their homes right now. This is fucking crazy. Like, this is one of those you can run but you can't hide situations, because it's happening everywhere. I'd never seen anything like that, and I don't know if there ever has been anything like that. I don't know during the Spanish flu times how much they obviously didn't have the internet. I don't know if they could reach everybody and have this happening. But I'd never really seen anything like this before. And I would sit with some people who were really frustrated because they'd seen enough of being told that things are one way and it not being that way. They'd seen enough of censorship of doctors and nurses and people from, say, YouTube, and YouTube is saying, we're removing anything that isn't in alignment with what the World Health Organization has to say. And you go, well, I'd like to hear what that doctor has to say. They say no. And then the World Health Organization, in a lot of cases, would change their stance to be in alignment with what that person that you censored a month or two ago said way back then. And I see a lot of frustration with that kind of stuff, and people kind of were taken out on one another. And I would tell people, listen, man, if you're not in alignment with the mask or the social distancing, if you don't think that this is This is the way to go. You have to understand that those people that you're getting angry at who are doing those things, they are bombarded with that information from everywhere they look, and they're just trying to do what they think is right now. When they open their phone, they're being told that you're going to kill your grandma, and then they put it on TV and it's telling them to save lives. And every outlet that they look at for information is reinforcing this into their reality, which is pretty fucking crazy, because when I wrote this book, it was really breaking down information and how it affects your reality. And there was a section in the book, I was actually recording the audio book in LA in April, so all this stuff already started. And I don't remember every line that I wrote, but now I'm reading it for the audio book, and I just got to this point where it was talking about when you believe something, if enough people believe something, and if someone has enough gravity to be able to impact a large group of people, and these people accept that as true, then they'll begin living their lives as if it is true. And if they do that, it's going to be true to them because they're experiencing and they believe it. But now you are changing the culture of an environment. And
if I may interrupt, you just said culture, and that root is cult. So back to we didn't think that many people would fall under this kind of spell per se. We're questioning, obviously there's something going on where people are getting sick, right? But the fact that the whole world as a just bought into this without questioning, that they got this information, I never thought that the whole world had potentially be under a spell of a cult leader or a cult where they take the information without questioning it. And so that, for me, that blew my mind. So back to what you're saying.
I would say, so I was saying, when you change a culture and the environment has changed, even the people who are skeptical are now, so enough people believe what this person who has an impact says, and they all change their expression because they accept that as true. And then you have these outliers or these people on the fence who are actually questioning stuff, but then they step out and say, well, everyone around me is acting this way, this has to be true, I have to accept this as true. And and then I'm recording the audiobook, and I'm just holy shit, I'm looking at this happen right now, fuck. But there's something that you said right now that I wanted to go into. Oh, right. So one of the biggest things for me is when this first started, people said we just need more information. We don't know yet. And fuck me, man. I wasn't going to sit there and risk killing anybody at the beginning of that. That's insane. What we were told this was, I'm not taking any chances, but I'm definitely going to sit back and observe, and I'm not going to get emotional. People who know me closely know that I'm just smoking a cigarette and riding the motorcycle and watching the show, so I'm going to go one day, but if I felt that my impact and what I'm doing was putting others at risk, I'm going to have to see what kind of a risk that is, I don't know what happened to people where they stopped questioning, like you said. Because at first, let's sit back and see what happens. We don't have enough data yet, so right. We need to sit back and see what happens, because if this is what you're saying it is, then a lot of people are going to die, and it's extremely stupid of us to just say, But then information started coming in, and not information from some tinfoil hat person. It was from the CDC, from the World Health Organization. Stuff starts coming in, and you're looking at the fatality rate for this, and it is so much lower than we thought. And that's great. that is fucking awesome. Like, we're good. But people, I guess they just accepted what life is when they were in that moment of fear, and they weren't ready to look at something else. I don't know. But then the other thing is, like, this massive push on the internet, on TV, that was calling anybody who questioned anything a conspiracy theorist, and just trying to discredit people from asking questions. And people that know me know that, like, my dad knows. He owned a clinical laboratory, and he had all these different little beakers that they would collect blood with. And I had one of each, and we didn't have much money. So I took a piece of paper and folded it 4 times over so it was a little thicker, and I made holes in it, and I put those beakers in there, and I taped it on my wall, so I had my little beaker set right there. And I just told my dad, when I get older, and I'm a tiny little kid then, I said, I'm going to be a scientist. And when I was tested in school, they found that I was gifted in mathematics and science, so they put me in a magnet program for that, and I always loved it. So for me, I'm absolutely going to look into stuff, and I'm going to get as much information as I can, and particularly when it's something of this magnitude, I'm definitely going to get as much information as I can, because the whole world is affected by it. I'm part of an ethics committee for a naso-cyno group. It's a group of doctors who have had work from COVID-19 published in Lancet Medical Journal that included finding out that our sense of smell and taste is affected by COVID-19. They just had a new study published in another medical journal talking about the efficacy of masks, and a call to action to the World Health Organization that you can't just say wear a mask. Like, it needs to be much more than that. If someone's taking their mask and putting it in their glove box or in their cup holder or in their pocket that's dirty and putting that back on their face and creating humidity, that is heavily increasing their chances of getting sick. So there's 8 of us on that group, and they put me on because I wrote the book. They needed someone from philosophy, I've been on there, so I've gotten to see a lot of studies. There's a study they're looking to get published right now, which is on antibodies, and from the tests that they've done, how long, the percentage of people that they've seen, how long their antibodies have stayed, and things of that nature. And my cousin was in the front lines in Italy. He's a doctor over there, and he's a ear, nose, and throat doctor, and this virus is basing itself in the respiratory system. So he was just in there, seen a lot of people die, and sat down with me and shown me a lot about this virus. And I would say, obviously, there are doctors who know more, but I would definitely say that I know more than just a random person in the street, for sure. And
the thing is, like, a lot of the healthcare professionals are afraid to speak out because of their livelihood, and a lot of people are struggling financially, obviously, through this global pandemic. And it's sad that so many people want to say something. Point number 1. Point number 2 is that we understand history of certain countries, and your parents came from Iran, and if you've been over there and seen what lack of freedom is like, and censorship, and so these are all like sort of red flags for you, but also for me, because my grandfather was a Filipino scout that fought the Japanese in World War II, and so he understands what propaganda is like, and when a particular program takes over a culture and the people in that culture go along with it. And so, it makes us wonder like how people in Germany or Japan would go along with their political propaganda to go after the world and their resources and to kill millions of innocent people, right? So to have the question of like what's going on is, to me, very proper, but to be treated as a black sheep, just to even throw the question out, and to be like censored and to be ridiculed and to be blackballed, and that makes me scratch my head, when all these factors are happening. And then on top of it, we have Black Lives Matter going on with the unfortunate police brutality of George Floyd, and then the polarization of the politics and the sort of split between Republicans and Democrats and like what they believe and how they could even work together to get people taken care of, financially during these times. So there's so many things happening, including like mental health things and suicide. And so back to like what you're talking about in regards to, hearing firsthand from your cousin from Italy. He's a medical doctor who specializes in respiratory symptoms and illnesses, and he's telling you like his version. And he was actually like in the early stages, like on board as all of us, because we didn't know like what was going on, and we were going to follow until more data came in, more information. And then that's when, in plain black and white, we could see for ourselves like it doesn't make sense to continue these stringent lockdowns. The WHO changed their stance, saying that the damage economically and on mental health is going to be worse than the actual pandemic, people falling to that. So, and not to say that like people can't pivot. Like the problem for me is when the media jumps on it because they know that grabs attention. And, attention is a big currency these days, especially with social media and media outlets. The old media is dying out. So they're going to be opportunists to create clickbait headlines. And if it bleeds, it leads. Try to get people to like tune in. So for me, as I'm watching this, we have complete empathy for like what's going on, but at the same time, we're not like blindly giving in to, the political propaganda and the sort of, since everybody else is following the ordinance and guidelines around like social distancing and masking. For us, it's like, well, we want to see more evidence. And why is that the evidence is being censored, and only certain people that have fact-checking credibility can dictate like what information we can see. So again, it's just all red flags for me, because this had happened in history, but we seem to have a short attention span or a short memory of what that means or what that can happen to us as a whole, as society, as a world. So for me to see people just blindly following or refusing to have these kind of discourse and conversation, it's another red flag. So
yeah, absolutely. I can tell all you guys that from my travels, not just during this, but in my life, and I've traveled quite a bit, people all over the world are looking to love and be loved. They're looking for happiness and the safety of their families. And, yeah, to experience this awesome experience of life. And it's such a gift to have this opportunity. But then I just see so much information of these people don't like you because you're from this place, or these people don't like you because your skin color is like this, or you're this gender, or you believe in this religion. And there are people that exist like that, for sure. They do. But you really need to question what is going to impact your life more. Is it the random person who's going to be an asshole to you because they don't like the color of your skin, or they don't like the way that you look or the way you express yourself? Or is it the belief that's given to you from the environment around you that's telling you that people don't like you, and every time you step into something you feel like you're a step below everybody else, and everyone else is looking at you and just wants the worst for you, and you begin to develop this confirmation bias where you're looking for any information in your environment to reaffirm something you currently believe, that may in that moment be that people don't like me and I'm not good enough and it's not going to work out for me because of whatever it is, my gender, my race, my religion, my beliefs. That will cripple a person. The culture we're immersed in is so important. If you're surrounded by supportive people, you've got a much better chance of succeeding in your life than if you're surrounded by people that are telling you that they're trying to create a victim mentality in you, you know? And this is coming from somebody who lived in that headspace for so much of my life. And a lot of people don't want to hear it, but it's such a great thing to hear. You have so much more influence on your life than people will lead you to believe. And that's fucking awesome. And when you recognize that and you go for it, beautiful shit will come from it. You will have massive transformations in your life. I did. If you guys have heard my previous interviews with Tony, you'd know how much pain I was feeling. And right now I'm almost tearing up just because of how fucking happy I am to be alive and the life that I'm living and how it's shaped up. It's so cool. It's so fucking cool. But when I had this belief that people hate me, and like I said earlier in the show, when I was sitting there and I had this belief that people just don't see how good I am, that's all I would recognize was that. And I was crippling myself. I was knocking myself down. And when I just went, man, I'm going to be me, and I took the time to see who me really is, got away from all the shit that I was told I have to be, I have to do, I have to value, I need to want, and this is what success is. And when I just stepped away from all that and got to know myself again, I just, found that kid that was in me, you know, that kid that just wanted to play and just wanted to love and have a great time in this experience of life. But now I had this wisdom of an adult with me too, and life drastically changed after that moment. But a lot of us get pulled into so much shit. Look, I don't want to be insensitive for anybody if they feel hurt from experiences that they've been through. If any of you have me on Facebook, you can look at my profile picture, and it won't be very hard for you to imagine me getting bullied when I was a kid. I went through all that shit, but that was life, man. That was just life, you know? You're living it. And it's really interesting when it comes to like describing myself in interviews, or I plan on writing another book that will be more autobiographical, and thinking like, what am I going to talk about? Because that's a very interesting thing. Or if you ask somebody, oh, tell me about yourself, you can kind of see where their pattern recognition is set to subconsciously. Because when I used to describe myself, all I ever talked about was the painful moments, and that's all I remembered. And I really had to sit back and remember how many fucking awesome moments I had, how many great people I've met in my life, even in the moments when I said that life sucked, you know? And just how powerful our mind is, really, and the reality that it creates for us. That's the kind of stuff I talk about in this book. And I really, yeah, when I put the book together, I was very excited to get it out to people. I was going through a big transformation in my own life while I was writing the book, and I needed to put what I wrote in that book to use to be able to even take the steps that I was taking in that moment of my life. And yeah, I got to a point during this year, and the division that I've seen created on so many levels, that I just said this information needs to be available to everybody, and whoever's ready to take it in, they can. So yeah, I created a website that kind of breaks down different things that I'm working on, from shifting fears to a bit about myself, yeah, about the book too. And I put an area where for anyone who couldn't afford it, they could just put in their email, and I'll send them a link to the audiobook directly, so that the information was so readily available that it's just on you to get it and comprehend it. And there's a lot of information. Might take pausing and really reflecting on these things and sitting with it, but it's there. And I guarantee you that you absorb that information and your life will drastically change. And again, like, I don't give a shit about the money. I don't give a shit. You can go buy it if you want to. If you want a paperback, go buy it. If you want the audiobook, it's available to you right now. And you can go
for free on your website.
For free on my website right now. You go to nimasinterpretation.com, theartofinterpretation.com, nimakhalilian.com. Any of those will redirect you there. And it's there for you. Like, I have such a fucking gift of a life. I do not need anything. And yeah, I know if I'm homeless in the street walking, I will be so grateful for that experience and to fully embrace that experience. At this point, I have two goals in my life. One is to fully experience every moment for myself, and the other is to try to help other people get to the state that I got to for myself while I'm doing this. And yeah, I'm gonna try, whether it was with shifting fears or it was with the art of interpretation or whatever comes next. I have an animated video that I was talking to you, Tony, about, that I'll put together, that's going to break down the way that reality is created in 2020. And yeah, I'm just gonna keep doing it, man. I just got the popcorn. I'm enjoying the show, and I'm gonna make my impacts along the way. But yeah, just to close off what we were just talking about there, everybody, like, how can I say this? I empathize with people and the pain they feel, and I swear to you that I've, if you've listened to the other podcasts, I had half of my upbringing just completely suicidal, you know. Mm-hmm. Just didn't want to be here anymore. I went to Poland to die when I trained with Wim, you know. I thought I was going to die there. And I got to tell you, there was shitty things that happened in my life, but it was my interpretation that made it shitty. Otherwise, it was just things that happened in my life. And yeah, there's some things that are going to be more pleasant, other things that aren't. But yeah, I promise you, you get right with yourself. You go into your mind a bit and recognize just how much power you can have. Because if you don't have it, someone else is going to be able to influence you heavily and tell you what to think and tell you what's right and tell you what's wrong and tell you how you're supposed to live your life. And when I've sat down with elderly people, most of them have regrets of things that they didn't take action on in their life. And I don't want that for myself. And the way that I've been living, I have no regrets. When I was on this motorcycle trip, we got to Washington State, and I was riding my motorcycle through Olympic National Park and doing 70 to 80 miles per hour on the highway there, and it's 2 lanes, and a full-grown 200-pound deer jumped out right in front of my bike. And it wasn't like it jumped out and I had time to react. It was in mid-air, and the front of my bike hit the deer right in the neck and killed the deer, unfortunately, and her body swung around and crushed my leg and nearly knocked me unconscious. The only sense I could feel in that moment was my sense of sight. Couldn't hear, smell, taste, anything, and all I could see, and I could barely see, was asphalt. And the last thought I had was, oh shit, I crashed and I'm just tumbling on the asphalt. And then my thought was gone too. And then all of a sudden, just a snap, everything turned back on, and the motorcycle is still upright and violently wobbling left and right, going into the oncoming lane, which fortunately there were no cars, but going straight off the road into these trees. And instinctively, when the bike was leaned very deeply, there wasn't even any thought. There'd just been, at this point, 8,500 miles of riding this bike. I took it as if it was a sharp turn, and I accelerated to create centripetal force to straighten the bike out, and was able to stop the bike. And then when I tried to put my right leg down to support the bike so I can put the kickstand down on the left side, I didn't know how bad my leg was crushed, and I couldn't put any weight on it, so the bike fell and crushed my leg a second time. The firefighter who got there told me that 3 weeks prior, someone on a motorcycle hit a deer half that size and died. They told me that they'd seen over 300 motorcycle deer. He'd personally seen over 300 motorcycle deer accidents in Olympic National Forest, and more than half of them die. And he told me that was the first time he'd ever seen the person not crash the motorcycle out of all of them, which was crazy. It was crazy. And I actually called you when it happened. And the point I'm making with that is, like, life can be over at any point. We sit here and we think, I'm going to live to be 80, 90, 100 years old. You don't know that. You do not know that. And what you do while you're here affects this reality. It does. And if you're going to choose to sit back and just accept whatever the TV tells you reality is, you have the right to do that. But I feel like with this virus, it's become very clear to me that most people have not come to grips with their mortality. We are going to die. And that person that you love very much is going to die. And that person that hasn't even come into this world yet that you're going to love more than any of that stuff is going to die one day too. Ask yourself, what are you waiting for right now? What's the answer? Well, are you waiting for the TV to tell you that it's okay to go back outside now? I have a lot of people that say, had people who tell me, yeah, we don't know about this virus. We don't know the long-term effects of this virus yet. And some of those same people told me, I'm just waiting for the vaccine. When the vaccine comes out, I'm going to get that, and then I'll be good. And I said, you don't know the long-term effects of that vaccine. And they've already come out and said, hey, the first couple million people are kind of going to show us how this goes. And that's still not even long-term effects, even just the short-term effects of it. So, again, it's these conflicting beliefs without questioning.
Yeah, or it was okay to go and protest.
Yeah. That was one of the ones, man. That was one of the ones when they said over 1,000 health officials, and this is on the news, you just told us we're all going to die if we do anything. We need to be responsible, this and that. And then you tell me over 1,000 health officials have signed off saying that racism is a much bigger much deadlier virus than COVID-19, and we support people protesting by the thousands. And that's cool if you support people protesting by the thousands, but then right now California is on a fucking curfew at 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. Don't leave your house. Like, there were tens of thousands of people screaming and protesting and marching together over there. I'm all for people coming together in solidarity. I fucking love that. I love when people come together. And it looks like most of the shit that they put on TV is made to keep people apart from each other. And that is very interesting to me. Whatever happens, it's trying to spin it and be like, this person doesn't get me because I'm different. The truth of the matter is, we all have so many similarities, but no one's ever going to get you. And that's the beauty of it. This is your unique experience. And even if I knew everything that you've been through in your life, I don't know the interpretation that you made from each experience that you've been in your life. Something that might have been a breakthrough experience for you, when you tell me about it, for me, I might be thinking, oh, that's so traumatic and that was terrible. And even if I could understand the interpretation of every experience you have, my definition of the words you use when you explain it to me might differ, and that creates a different... I'll never get you. Doesn't matter. I'll never get you, and you'll never fully get me. But that's the beauty of it all. At the end of the day, what do you want to sit with? Do you want to just try to prove that you're an individual? Because I can tell you definitely are. Do you want to see what you have in common with other people? Because there's tons to see. Man, I can tell you, life is a fucking gift. It is a gift. It is so awesome that my mouth makes these sounds that go into this microphone and turn into digital code that come out and go into your ear, and what's in my head is being transferred into your head right now. That's crazy. That's crazy. And I gotta take a piss, so I'll be right back.
What are you smoking, man? Wow. Oh, yeah, I'd concur with Nima. I mean, seriously, my life has had a lot of ups and downs, and, you know, being born and eventually developing hearing issues, and then not having a father who had abandoned us by the time, or right before I was 2, and, you know, just watching my single mom work her ass off with the support of, fortunately, her side of the family, to like my grandparents and aunts and uncles that were just there to take us in. And, you know, being overweight, being overprotected, never being able to leave the house, living in a box during the summer, and you see all the kids outside playing, and just having self-esteem issues and anger issues and taking it out on my sister. And you start to question a lot of things, and I was definitely suicidal too, because I was like, what's the point? Like, why am I living this way? And I can't tell you how grateful I was to go through those experiences, because it sort of like cracked the shell, enabled me to kind of see reality. I still have vivid memories of my childhood and just kind of how we are as children, the ability to see life with such clarity and vividness, and then to have that light dim over time because of, well-meaning people with their programming, interpretations, and their perspective on how life should be and how you should live it. And anytime that someone tells me that this is how it is, or you need to do this, immediately the resistance goes up, and I'm internally just saying, like, fuck you and fuck off. Because when I was a kid, was just so upset that, like, I couldn't even, like, finish sleeping in the morning to get the light turned up on me, and it's so bright and so unnatural, and intuitively it felt wrong to get ready for school, which I always question, like, why are we even learning this stuff, and to throw on religion at the same time. And it was conflicting because for me, I had that experience of connection to the source or God or whatever definition of religion gives to that sense, that essence of awareness of how we even know that we're alive right now, and how we have the ability to, like, ask the question. And all this programming, all this information was coming in, and it was just confusing, But at a certain point, there are moments where I would get into these, like, incredible, timeless, and amazing alive states where I felt like me, and so throughout my life, it was this sort of roller coaster ride of trying to fit in and hating myself, because the mind, like, even if you had people bullying you, like, there's no bigger bully than your own mind until you figure out, like, hold on a sec, like, why am I telling myself these cruel things? Why am I doubting myself? And I still haven't gotten it down, I'm still hijacked and possessed by that ultra critical and bullying mind, but I'm better. And that was the breakthrough for me, is like, wow, I'm actually improving over time, 43 years on this planet, and or maybe even more in my mom's belly. But it's incredible to see progress, even if you're just moving. I always say, like, moving the needle of progress, over time is significant. And once you understand that, and you understand how powerful, like, compounding interest is, and the ability to create momentum, and I look forward to failures. I look forward to negative feedback from people, even my own mind, because once I see what it is, I can go, oh, that's interesting. Where is that coming from? Back to the art of interpretation, right? It's like, is that true? Or is that not true? Like, why would I even say something like that about myself or someone else? Like, how would I know what that person's going through, in terms of me observing or being judgmental, right? And so I think this year has been incredible that way, because we already been living this life for, like, many years now, but to do it, like, consciously, and to really, like, step on the gas, to throttle into it even more when everybody's starting to, like, or had been withdrawing. But the main thing for me is just look at, like, this information and data stream that's coming in through your system, and make the decision yourself. Don't let your subconscious take over. You had mentioned that in the previous podcast, like, once you are conscious of your subconscious, then you're the one that's riding, you're the one that's in control of the bike per se, versus the bike is spinning out of control, and you feel like you can't do anything about it. And I think that was beauty of your so-called accident, right? It was because it was analogous in that way. Like in that moment, you made the choice in a split second of time, you decided to hit the throttle, which was like completely counterintuitive. And maybe it was because of your training before or whatnot, your learning of it, but the fact that you're still here is like testimony of how one could even change in a split second.
Well, that's something I want to point out is there's a lot of talk about being conscious and being mindful, and it's extremely important. But the overwhelming majority, I've seen 92%, I've seen 99%, what the number is, I don't even know how they come up with that number, but the overwhelming majority of our actions, our thoughts, are operating through our subconscious. So mindfulness and being conscious is pivotal, because when you become aware of something that's deep in your subconscious, now you're conscious of it and you can work with it. And if you work with it, you can reprogram it and then put it back into your subconscious in the way that you want it to operate. So tweaking those things in the subconscious are massive, because we don't have the bandwidth. Our mind doesn't have the bandwidth to be conscious of everything it's doing all the time. It would be too much. But like on that motorcycle, when all that happened, I wasn't sitting there doing trigonometry and trying to figure some shit out. I wasn't even thinking. That was a lot of practice. That was a lot of time on that bike. That was my best friend, my cousin, dying on a motorcycle. So me taking the time to read so many different kinds of riding theory and putting it to the test. So when that moment came, there was one moment that I remember thinking when I snapped back into it, and that was I was going off the road, and my bike is made to be able to go off the road. And I remember just thinking to myself, because I looked down at it and I knew that there was grass, and I went, I need all the traction I can get, so I need to keep this bike upright. So instead of leaning the bike to get it back on road, I leaned my body so I can keep the bike upright. And I remember thinking, I have to look where I want to go, because that's how my cousin died, and a lot of people die, is they look at what they fear and they go right into it. So I looked at the road and trusted that the rest was going to work out. I looked at my target, I locked in on it, and I went for it. And other than that, everything was subconscious. And I think I've done a lot of that in life too. Looked at things that I was afraid of and just attracted that into my life too. Just took all the necessary actions to make that real and brought it closer and closer to myself. And
How was the piss?
Fucking amazing. I feel like a new man. I feel like my voice is a new level of richness to it now.
What happened to draining the vein?
Oh man, that sexy water. Yeah. Tony's got this water he makes, and this podcast is sponsored by Sexy Water, also known as Slutty Water,
aka Slutty Water. Contact Tony FlowReal if you want to taste this delicious, minerally rich, and CO2 enhanced H2O.
Taste
Cheers.
the slut. Cheers, ladies and gentlemen.
You look like the Great Gatsby there. So, any final words for the audience? Thank you guys for your support and taking the time of your busy lives. Obviously, maybe not so busy these days, but we appreciate your attention in this crazy world that's kind of claim everybody's attention, you know. sort of like the manipulation of social media, whatever. But what are your thoughts? Freedom of thought, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Got this shirt on. It says freedom of thought. And yeah, Tony's trying to cut this short. We ain't having that though. I got 15 more minutes. You ain't taking that from me. We're gonna talk about freedom of thought.
Go into it, man.
All right. So this animated video that I'm going to be creating, and who knows, by the time you watch this, maybe it's out already. The title will be something like How Reality is Created in 2020. It talks about how after COVID-19, people have disconnected to a certain extent. They've spent more time in their homes. They don't really want to be around each other when they're outside. People keep their distance. They have their masks on their face. There's not the communication, person-to-person communication that there used to be is non-existent right now in most parts of the world, almost everywhere, but most certainly. So if you look at the hunter-gatherer days, they would take in information from their surroundings and they'd speak to one another, and that's how they would get their information. As we evolved and mail came to be and newspapers came to be and television and radio and all these things and new forms of communication came, it went from 100% getting our information from our surroundings and the people around us to a chunk of that initially when it first came around going to, like there's this radio station I can listen to, and people would listen to that and they would upload information into their mind and would shape their perception of reality. As time progressed and internet came to be, there was even more of that, more connectivity, more information being shared, and the ratio started to shift even more. You had people less and less receiving information from one another, and more receiving information from their televisions and from their computers. And the smartphone came around, and that changed everything, because now you had a little portal that would give you information at all times. And we got addicted to it. We got heavily addicted to it. Now, obviously, these numbers are just made up, but let's say at this point we were at a state in 2019 where we were getting 75% of the information of our life from our cell phones, from our computers, from our televisions, from radio, and 25% from person-to-person interaction. Now in 2020, with COVID-19 and these restrictions that have been put on in most places, most people are getting, 99% of their information from their TV, from their computer. They're getting it through their smartphones, and a very, very, very small amount is coming from person-to-person interaction. And then once you look at that point, you need to look at where does the information come from. And if you can go on Google and just put in who owns the media, and you'll see that 6 corporations in the United States own over 90% of the media. And that includes the news, TV shows, movies, newspapers, radio shows. Over 90% is owned by 6 groups. And it might be 5 at this point. But we'll say 6. So they have the ability to pump information to the masses and create their reality. And now you say, okay, well, now that we're not around each other, our primary source of connecting and sharing information with one another is through social media. And then you look at Facebook and their fact checks, Instagram and their fact checks, Twitter and their fact checks, and just removing people, banning people, YouTube just removing doctors telling us, when I go to a doctor and this one tells me one thing, and I may want to go get a second opinion, and the doctor is giving me their opinion, you're just removing it. Google, when you Google something in the searches, the way that the searches come up, it heavily affects If I Google something, I'm not going to go to the 6th page of Google to see what it is. Have you ever done that in your life? I don't think I've ever done that in my life. You know, like even when I had my business and I was working on SEOing to try to get it to the 1st page, if I got to the 3rd page of looking and I couldn't find it, I'm like, okay, you don't exist, you know? So what comes up on your searches is heavily going to affect that. Now, add into all of that the algorithms that Facebook uses to give you information that they think you'll want to click on because they want to keep you engaged, and you're kept in this little echo chamber bubble that's creating this reality for you.
Also, priority goes to those that paid for the top of the search engine.
Yeah, absolutely. And when someone fact checks something, when someone's telling me not to believe something, that's huge. Because as we spoke about before, your beliefs are massive in your life. They're massive. They affect the reality you experience, the way you express yourself, and the reality that other people experience through the expression that you're showing them. So it's huge. So when you have just a tidal wave of information coming in through 6 corporations, and then you have gatekeepers who are deciding what information can be passed through social media platforms, and in a lot of cases it's very clear who they're censoring or what agenda or perspective they're censoring, that is going to create your reality. And when you're not leaving your house and you're afraid that you're going to die or grandma's going to die or any of that stuff, and you just have these people. So I want to tell you guys this. I think this is a good thing to leave it on. There's this book called The Kybalion, and it's a guide. It's written by these guys called the 3 Initiates, and they go over Hermetic teachings from over 1,000 years ago. And they talk about the all. And the all, some people call it the source, some people call it God. It's basically the all-encompassing consciousness or energy that everything manifests from, right? Yeah, it's an interesting book. So it's saying, okay, there's, at the root of everything is energy. And they argue that it's not energy and that it's actually consciousness, because energy would just be creating by a set pattern, whereas they say consciousness is what it is. But let's say it's energy. They say everything at its root is energy. We've seen that with string theory as well. Now, they say through that everything is manifested. It doesn't take anything external. There is nothing external from the all, because it's the all. Everything, what they are referring to is the energy of everything. So for whatever comes into the universe or any reality is coming through this space. And they said, and I was riding my motorcycle to Idaho while I'm listening to the audiobook of this, and they said, do humans have anything like that? Do we have anything where we can create and destroy, but it doesn't require anything external? It's only internal. And I wrote this book, so I right away went, yep, your mind. And sure enough, they said, your mind. Our mind is our closest thing to what the source would be. We have our own little mini source, our imagination, our mind. And I can create ideas in my mind. I can destroy things in my mind, and it can physiologically affect me, these beliefs and ideas that I'm having. So it was basically saying, oh, you are the god of your own mind. And I remember pulling over at a bus stop and sitting with that, and I went, shit. If you're not aware of the manipulation that's happening to your mind from outside sources, then the people that are manipulating your mind, are the gods of your mind. And they are dictating how that thing operates. So, The Art of Interpretation, A Guide to Remembering Rules of Reality, nimasinterpretation.com, nimakhalilian.com, theartofinterpretation.com. Get it for free. Get it on Amazon. If you're sitting around watching Netflix, give yourself that time and really absorb it. I love all you guys. I don't need to know you. I don't need to know who's listening right now. I promise you I love you. I know we're all soulmates. I've been there and I know it. And yeah, thanks for having me, bro.
Yeah, anytime, man. Always. It's can't think of a more timely book for the times that we're living. And you know, just grateful that you know, in 2 years made the sacrifices to get this in print and, you know, in audio, and to make it free for people. Like you said, you don't care about the return other than you want to get this message out to anybody that's on the fence, when they're even skeptical, for those that are just looking for answers in some ways. So yeah, just grateful that you put it together and it's available. Amazon.
You can go on Amazon, you can get it on Audible, you can go to my website and get it for free. Shit, if you have to read it and you can't afford it, go on my website and contact me. I'll send you the digital copy for free. It's all good. We'll make it happen. I would love to see a world where as many people, I would love to see a world where everybody has this information just ingrained in them and sees the world through that lens, because I think it would be very, very difficult for you to be manipulated by others. You would realize some of the key commodities that you possess, one of which you brought up many times during this podcast, which is your attention. And yeah, there was something else I did want to tell you guys.
Well, first of all, like, become the god of your own mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's so
freedom of thought. That's what the shirt was about. That's what I was rambling on that whole time, is when you're told what you can and can't believe, what is and isn't true, and you stop questioning things. That's one of the big things that's been conditioned in us since we were in school, is we mistake memorization with intelligence. They tell you who is the blah, 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 and they want you to spit an answer out. Or what is yada, 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 spit that answer out. If you can spit that answer out, then you're intelligent. Now, if you're asked, how is this in relation to that thing, most people will have no idea, because all they're trying to do is memorize what they need to. And you see the result of that now. People reading headlines, coming out with bullshit slogans, build back better, stop the spread, flatten the curve, and we become mouthpieces for these sources that are sharing this information. And this isn't you. You know, you are doing what you were trained to do. We were all doing it, and you can snap yourself out of it, and you don't have to. Like, life is beautiful. It's a gift either way. Just realize that a lot of people have just taken in information. They look at something quickly, they absorb it, and then they start spewing it out to everyone else. They immediately accept it as true, and they'll fight you if you disagree with them. And that's happened on massive scales. We've been told what people are like. Like, through my motorcycle travels, I've been around all sorts of people. I've been around people who are big-time Trump supporters. I've been around people who are hardcore Democrats and are all about that. And they're people. They're awesome, beautiful gifts to this world people. Okay? People can tell you there's all these circle jerks about, yeah, this person's like this because they support that person, or this person's like, you don't know until you get to know a person. And like I said earlier, people are really trying to make the best out of this experience. And yeah.
Yeah, That was beautiful. Just love your neighbors like you love yourself, like so powerful.
Yeah, and if you love your neighbors more, then love yourself like you love your neighbors. Just love. It's good. It's a good thing to do.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Nima, for sharing yourself with us, giving us your time, for coming all the way out to Ireland to do this. And, get his book, everybody, whether it's audio or in print, and share as many people, and let's start having these discourse and conversations, and try to understand each other and understand all the different lenses we all operate at, and we can still get along and disagree at the same time.
That's absolutely fucking right. And I'm so glad you got that into this podcast, is you can hear somebody say something that you don't agree with and not agree with it and not lose your shit over it, and just try to surround yourself with people that agree with everything you believe. If everyone believed the same thing and acted in the same way, this would be a really boring life. It's a gift to be able to, the term I use in the book is open-minded skepticism, to be able to take in information, and even if it's outside of your boundaries and something you're not comfortable with, but then to be skeptical and ask questions and try to really get to the bottom of it. Open-minded skepticism and communication, open communication, whether it's with a loved one, with a coworker, or with the person you think you hate, and then you speak to them and you see, okay, we're all people.
Yeah, absolutely. Love you, brother.
Love you too, man.
Love you, audience. Thanks for your support. And the live audience right behind the camera. And thank you guys for tuning in to Hangry and Horny.